She was just 15, a talented athlete, a loving daughter, and a bright light in her community. But behind her beautiful smile, Caylee Mastin was fighting silent battles that no one could fully see.
If you remember Caylee, you would think, gosh, that was such a bright light.
And on a heartbreaking day in March 2023, that fight came to a tragic end. This is not just a story of loss, it's a wake-up call. A story of pain, of a mother's desperate search for answers, and a community left grieving, but also rising to raise awareness. Today, we dive into the heartbreaking and emotional story of Caylee Mastin and the powerful movement her memory has inspired. But after she passed, her mom couldn't stay silent. She went straight to the boy she believed was responsible, Caylee's ex-boyfriend. The boy says he did nothing wrong. I'm definitely traumatized from that, but she had one message for him. And then she clicks it and she's like, your time's next. Or your time's coming soon. But what really led to that moment is more complicated than anyone expected. Caylee Marie Mastin was born on August 16, 2007 in Cincinnati, Ohio, to Julie Mastin and Donald Richard Mastin. But she grew up in the quiet town of Milford, Ohio, surrounded by a loving family. From a young age, Kay was known for her bright smile and kind heart. She loved to laugh and was always quick to give a hug. She had a younger brother named Camden, and the two shared a strong sibling bond. They played, teased each other, and were always there for one another. At home, life was simple but full of love. School days, movie nights, and weekends spent together as a family. But life changed too soon. In 2012, when Caylee was just 5 years old, her father passed away after a battle with cancer. Donald had been a devoted dad, and losing him was incredibly hard, especially for Kay. She was a daddy's girl, and his absence left a big hole in her heart. Julie did her best to comfort her children, but the grief was deep. Julie became a single mom, doing her best to raise two young kids while grieving her husband. With help from family and the Milford community, she kept going. Julie's brother, Caylee's uncle, was also a big support during that time. But heartbreak came again. In 2020, Caylee's uncle passed away in a sudden accident after a brain injury from a car crash. Kay was just 13 years old. It was another painful loss. Still, she kept going. Despite the sadness, Kay stayed gentle, kind, and strong. She and her mom grew even closer. Julie wasn't just her mother, she was her best friend. They did everything together, from homework to weekend drives. Julie once said, "She wasn't just my daughter, she was my person." As Kay entered her teenage years, she blossomed into a well-rounded and outgoing young girl. She attended Milford High School in Milford, Ohio, where she quickly became known for both her strong academics and her love for soccer. In the classroom, Kay was an honor roll student who took her studies seriously. She was respectful to her teachers, kind to her classmates, and always willing to help someone who was struggling. But it was on the soccer field where Kay truly stood out. She played as a midfielder and gave her all in every game. Her coaches called her a fierce competitor, and her teammates loved her for the energy she brought to the team. Whether she was scoring goals or lifting others up after a tough play, Kay made everyone around her feel included. Outside of class and sports, Kay had a gentle, fun personality. She was known for her big smile, silly jokes, and thoughtful heart. Friends said she was a type of person who always checked in if someone was having a bad day and made people laugh without even trying. At home, she was just as grounded, helping with chores, spending time with her dog, and enjoying quiet evenings with her mom. Her favorite nights were taco nights when she and Julie cooked together and talked about life. Even though Kay seemed happy on the outside, smiling with friends, doing well in school, and playing the sports she loved, on the inside, she was carrying something much heavier. When she reached her early teens, Kay started to deal with depression and anxiety. A lot of the pain went back to losing her dad at just 5 years old. Her mom, Julie, said that every year around his birthday or the date he passed, Kay would become more quiet, more emotional. Sometimes she'd get upset for no clear reason, or just seem distant. The sadness never really left her. It followed her into her teenage years. Later, she started seeing a therapist, and by the time she was in high school, she was also taking medication for depression and anxiety. Julie drove her to counseling every week. Kay took her medicine on time. They were doing everything they could. Most people at school didn't know, but a few close friends knew she wasn't always okay. She had opened up to them about her harder days, how sometimes it was tough to get out of bed, or how a wave of sadness would hit her in the middle of the day and she'd quietly leave class just to cry alone. She also battled anxiety, often worrying if she was good enough at anything, whether in soccer, school, or friendships. Julie tried everything, talking to doctors, helping Kay journal her feelings, and reminding her constantly how loved she was, but nothing seemed to make the sadness completely go away. And sadly, no one could truly see just how heavy it had become. At just 14 years old, during her freshman year at Milford High School, Kay entered what would become a deeply painful chapter in her life. That's when she began dating a boy named Abel, someone who at first seemed caring and attentive. Abel was also a student at Milford High and played on the school's varsity football team. At first, their relationship looked like typical teenage romance, but it didn't stay that way for long. Friends and family said Aya became possessive and controlling. He reportedly told Kay who she could talk to, pressured her to delete friends from social media, and often started arguments out of jealousy. Sometimes he would say hurtful things only to apologize later, a pattern that repeated again and again. Messages from that time painted a painful picture. The tone from Kay was often cold and dismissive. He shut her down, ignored her feelings, and ended conversations without care. In response, Kel's words reflected hurt, sadness, and a longing for peace. She brought up how much she missed her dad and how tired she felt. The exchange showed more than just a disagreement. It revealed someone being emotionally pushed to a place no one should ever be. Kale's friend Kay said she became more anxious, more withdrawn. Her energy started to fade. Julie, her mom, noticed it too. When she found out what was going on, she tried to help Kay leave the relationship. And Kay did try, but Aja kept pulling her back in, using guilt, manipulation, and even threats to keep her from walking away. By early sophomore year, Kay ended it for good, but the damage had already been done. She blamed herself for everything, for not leaving sooner, for believing his words, for feeling weak. But the truth is, she wasn't weak. She was just a kind, loving girl who got trapped in a toxic relationship, and she didn't deserve any of it. For many who loved her, this was the moment her light began to dim. And for Kay, it became harder and harder to carry that weight alone. Then on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023, the day began like any other for 15-year-old Caylee Mastin. She had online classes that morning because the upper grades were testing, so she stayed home. It was just an ordinary day until it wasn't.
That morning, I had heard her up and moving around a little bit in her room, which I kind of was like, that's weird. You know, she's not a morning girl at all. So I checked in on her before I left, got ready for work and all that. I checked in on her and I knocked and I didn't get an answer. So I, cracked the door open and I could tell she was pretending to be asleep. I just tiptoed over to her. I kissed her on the top of the head and I told her I loved her. And I tiptoed out and went to work. I could tell she had been crying. So I'm working about mid-morning. I wanted to check in on her, hoping, that she actually did fall asleep. So I sent her a text. I said, how are you feeling? Are you hungry? Don't forget about therapy, So Caylee replied to my text. She said she was sorry. I replied with, what? ? I thought maybe she was talking about therapy. Therapy was a fight every week. So I immediately called her and got no answer. Called again, got no answer. Sent a text, no answer. Got on our cameras around our home, nothing, nothing alerting me. My heart knew she was already gone.
She was only 15 years old. Caylee's passing left her family, friends, and the entire Milford community in shock. No one could fully understand how much she had been carrying or how heavy it had truly become. After Caylee's passing, the community of Milford, Ohio came together in a powerful way. Within days, her friends and classmates organized a candlelight vigil at a local park. Hundreds of people showed up, teachers, students, and families wearing purple ribbons, Caylee's favorite color. Support also poured in for Caylee's family. A local group called Dog Good Mission helped raise over $30,000 to cover funeral costs. Her service took place later that March, filled with memories, laughter, and tears. That fall, the girls' soccer team hosted a mental health awareness game in Caylee's name. Julie was invited onto the field. She was later gifted letters from Caylee's friends and teammates, sharing the impact Kay had on their lives. But just when it seemed like the community was beginning to heal, the story took a turn no one expected. For Caylee's mom, Caylee Mastin, the pain didn't stop with the funeral. The quiet in the house, the memories everywhere, the aching absence. It became too much to carry. Alongside her heartbreak came guilt, confusion, and eventually anger. As Julie began learning more about the relationship that had taken a toll on Kay, especially the emotional harm caused by her ex-boyfriend, A.A. Bell, something shifted inside her. She believed he had emotionally broken her daughter and played a role in what happened. That belief grew stronger with time until it overwhelmed her. On August 27, 2023, about 6 months after Caylee's passing, Julie arrived at a house party where A.A. was present. According to police, she entered the garage looking for him. In her grief, she confronted. The situation never turned physical, but in that moment, it was terrifying for everyone there. Julie was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including unlawful entry and threats. It was a heartbreaking turn in an already tragic story. Julie later admitted that she had turned to alcohol to cope with the grief and wasn't thinking clearly that night. She immediately regretted what she'd done. In early 2024, she pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years of probation, including required mental health and substance use treatment. She avoided prison, but the emotional weight remained. To many in the Milford community, Julie's actions were shocking, but they also saw her pain. She wasn't a criminal. She was a mother who lost her child and had reached a breaking point. From community events to school tributes, Julie turned grief into action, determined to make sure no other family would feel the pain she carries. And even though the road hasn't been easy, Caylee's story is now helping others find light in the dark. Her name has become a reminder to check on your friends, to speak up when something feels heavy, and to lead with kindness. Always. Long live Caylee Mastin. Love deeply remembered forever. Caylee's story is a painful reminder that sometimes the brightest smiles hide the deepest pain. Let her legacy be more than just a memory. Let it be a reason to check in, to speak up, and to truly listen, because one conversation could save a life.